The Georgia Bulldogs are right back where they need to be, and they are motivated to make sure that last year isn't a repeat this year. We take a deep dive into the Georgia Bulldogs to see what we should expect from them in 2025. Kirby Smart's team came up short in 2024. The loss to Notre Dame in the college football playoff did not sit well with the fan base, but it also did not sit well with this team and coaching staff. This is a team that expects to be competing for conference championships, to competing for national championships. And last year, they did not do that. This year, they are motivated to make sure that that happens. They reach their goals in 2025. It was an offense that at times did not live up to expectations, full of inconsistent play, and now they're hoping to get back to what they once were. And I think that it's going to be a really exciting year for Georgia in 2025. And you brought in some transfers that are going to make that happen as well. You brought in some players that should make a big impact for this team. The big ones are going to be at the wide receiver position. You bring in Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas. Those are two guys that are going to be big time players for this passing attack. And it'll be fun to see how they work out for Georgia. I think one of the more surprising additions was bringing in Elo Mendoza from Army. Just the fact that Georgia is bringing in an Army transfer was just so strange, but also really cool. I like what he's capable of doing, and it'll be fun to see how he fits in this defense. Also on defense, you bring in a bunch of defensive backs: Zion Branch, Adrian Maddox, Jaden Harris. You also bring in a running back that will be really fun to watch in Josh McCray. So this team identified the needs that they had, and they really addressed them quite well. You bring in a handful of starters that should make an impact right off the bat, and you also bring in some depth pieces that'll be really good should some of those starters go down. The quarterback position is going to be under a ton of scrutiny. It'll be under the spotlight. Gunnar Stockton has some big shoes to fill, not just because Carson Beck is leaving. It depends on how you feel on Carson Beck, but the past of Georgia football in terms of the quarterback position has seen a number of really fun players, and it's been full of players that fly under the radar, but also some players that are going to be highly coveted in the recruiting process and turn out to be really good players. This has been a program that has a good history at the quarterback position. When you talk about it, Gunnar Stockton has big shoes to fill, but also I think a lot of people are kind of underrating him. I don't think a lot of people have high hopes for him coming into the season, but I think he is in a great position to have a big year for Georgia. Last year stepped in late in the season, only had 440 yards in his limited time, one touchdown, one interception. But I think one thing we learned about Gunnar Stockton is that he is a competitor. He is going to put it literally all on the line, whether this team likes that or not, for his team. He is going to do what it takes to win, even if that means getting smoked in a big game. He is going to put it on the line for his teammates. He's going to leave everything on the field, and he doesn't care if he puts his body in jeopardy. Now, the coaching staff would obviously like to see him take less shots like that, but sometimes you can't control it. Gunnar Stockton is wired that way, and that's the kind of guy I think that this offense needs. Now, there are questions about his ability to throw the football, which I think some of them are valid, but also some of them I think are kind of overblown. I think this is still an accurate passer who's going to be able to make some big plays. Maybe he doesn't have the arm talent of some of the guys that preceded him. Maybe he doesn't have the arm talent of Carson Beck, but I think that he's still going to be a fun player. He's also going to give you a threat as a runner, and I think that he is going to be really fun to watch in that capacity as well. Because the other option is either going to a redshirt freshman in Ryan Puglisi or a freshman in Ryan Montgomery. Even you look at Ezekiel Miller, there's not a ton of proven commodities on this roster, but you do have some young talent that is ready for the future. It's just going to be who is that guy going forward. But right now it's Gunnar Stockton's job, and it's his job to keep. And it'll be fun to see how he performs in this offense, because this offense puts a ton of talented pieces around him. And sometimes he's just going to need to be a distributor. Yes, he'll need to make some big throws here and there, but he is someone that will have to just distribute the football because that's how much talent he has around him. The running back position is kind of part of that. And I'd like to see Georgia be a dominant rushing attack once again. And Nate Frazier gives you the opportunity to do that. That's another young guy that stepped up earlier than expected. And as long as he can hang on to the football, he'll be one of the best running backs in college football. 133 carries last year, 671 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns. You bring in Josh McCray, like we talked about before, from Illinois. That is a guy who is ready to make an impact as well. 6'1", 235 pounds. He's ready for the physicality that is involved in the SEC, and he's going to have plenty of guys pushing him to be part of that rotation. Chauncey Bowens carried the ball 16 times last year for 58 yards. Dwight Phillips, 6 carries, 33 yards, 1 touchdown. So Georgia is in a good position in terms of depth. They just want to see that top guy step up. Maybe that's Frazier, maybe that's McCray or somebody else. But ultimately, replacing Trevor Etienne is going to be really interesting to watch because this offense has to be physical running the football. And I think they have the offensive line to make that happen and get back to what we've seen in the past from this group. It's just going to come down to hanging on the football and being physical. Gunnar Stockton is going to face a lot of scrutiny. Like I said, people are going to watch what he does and they're going to have opinions. The nice thing is that he gets to throw to a lot of talented players. You bring in Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas. Those are two very different wide receivers, and there's a lot of excitement surrounding Zachariah Branch for a reason. When you look at what he did as a freshman at USC, you saw the versatility in his game, the ability to make an impact as a receiver, as a ball carrier, whether they use him on jet sweeps or whether they use him in short routes, screen passes, you name it. But also his ability to impact the game as a returner could be something that we talk about once again. As a freshman, he made some big time plays. We saw him against San Jose State and what he could do early in his career. He is someone that can make an impact in multiple areas of the game. And that's a Swiss Army knife that Georgia could be utilizing a lot more. And this is an offense that is looking for more ways to be explosive. Zachariah Branch could single-handedly be that reason. Same thing with Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas is a very different player, but could be a reason why they're more explosive. 39 catches for 574 yards, averaged 14.7 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns at Texas A&M. He is a really fun player to watch at wide receiver. Gives you a really good frame at 6'5", 205 pounds, and someone who can stretch the defense, which makes Zachariah Branch even more dangerous. If you have to worry about covering Noah Thomas and Colby Young deep, then you're not really worried about Zachariah Branch, which opens you up for a lot of potential damage underneath. Colby Young is someone, as long as he puts it together off the field, on the field, he should be really fun. 11 catches last year for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. If he puts it all together, this is a really dangerous trio. The depth behind them, there's a lot of young talent, but there's also guys like Dylan Bell who could be another really fun player to watch behind Zachariah Branch. There's a lot of different things that he could potentially do. You also have London Humphreys, who had 15 catches for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. So those are 2 guys that are going to be part of that as well. And then it comes down to which young guy is going to step up. You have Talon Taylor, Jeremy Bell, CJ Wiley, Jacoby White. Those are 4 guys that are going to be part of that. It's just a matter of which one of them is ready more so than the others. The tight end position also might be a bigger part of this offense. And honestly, I think it should be. Yes, you have a really good trio of wide receivers that can be explosive, but you do need to involve the tight end. Oscar Delp has a bright future ahead of him. We'll see what that means in terms of NFL draft stock. But he's 6'5", 245 pounds. You have a lot of big frames that you can throw to downfield. And Oscar Delp feels like he was underutilized last year. 21 catches for 248 yards and 4 touchdowns. Lawson Lucky, 24 catches, 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. So those 2 guys should be a big part of this offense, should be able to take this team to another level because of their reliability. And if Gunnar Stockton finds some comfort in knowing that Delp and Lucky are downfield for him, then you feel like they're in a good position to make more plays, to be able to get this offense where it needs to be, because this offense needs to take a step. If they want to compete for a national championship, the offense is really what needs to be better and what really needs to be consistent. Yes, the defense has its own concerns and has its own things that it needs to do, but it's the offense really that has to be better overall. And I think that really is going to help with the quarterback position playing better. And you feel really good also about the offensive line and the talent that it returns. The offensive line could be a huge reason why this team is able to meet its goals in 2025. And they'll be physical. They'll be able to get things to the level that you want it to be. And it's going to be really fun to watch this group compete because you have a number of guys that are ready to dominate. And you have two tackles in Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green III that have a ton of experience and are ready to hopefully play a full year. Because if you see that happen, you're feeling really good about what they can do. And people are already talking about them in the NFL draft circles. So you're feeling really good about what that group can do as long as those two guys are healthy. And the tackle positions are going to be a big reason why, one, they get back to being physical and running the football very efficiently. But it's also going to give you, your quarterback, I should say, more comfort in knowing he has time to throw, more comfort in knowing, hey, I don't have to worry about pressure because my offensive line is experienced and they have the talent to stifle guys in their tracks. Same thing with the interior offensive line. You feel really confident about what they have coming back. At guard, you see Micah Morris come back with a ton of experience, just started 5 games last year for the Dogs. Daniel Calhoun steps up in a big way. I think that if he's healthy, but this staff is really excited about what he could be. You're working through that foot injury in the spring, but if he is healthy, he's going to be an absolute force. I think that he is going to be really fun, and that's just going to be a really good interior group to watch. Drew Bobo will be the center there. You bring in Walclair Flynn from UCF to potentially be his backup, but overall, the starting group is full of, one, good size, 2, good NFL talent, but 3, excitement for an offensive line. And normally people don't get really that excited about the offensive line. It's kind of easy to see why, but if you're a Georgia fan, you feel really good about what you have coming back. You also have, even though it's inexperienced, you have, I think, really good talent behind a lot of those guys. Bo Hewley, Jamal Merriweather, those are 2 guys that if they have to step up, I think they have the talent to compete. It's just going to come down to, what do they do when their number is called? What do they do when it's time for them to step up? That'd be a big thing because Monroe Freeling had shoulder surgery in the offseason. What if he's not able to go? Does Merriweather have to step up? What if someone on the interior gets hurt? These young guys are talented. There's a reason why Georgia wanted them. But if they're asked to step up, are they able to do that? Are they able to make that happen? And what does it look like if they are put into a position in a big game? The defense is going to probably be, once again, a big strength for this team. And really that all starts up front. And you have some young guys that I think are ready to take that step and are ready to be more household names. But it just comes down to, what are they going to be able to do now that they're the full-time starter? What are they going to be able to do? Because you bring this talented group of players in, and it just comes down to, how are you able to make those plays on a consistent basis? And Georgia is in a great position with the guys that they have. They're very excited, and it's going to be fun to watch this group compete. Gabe Harris Jr. is another player that honestly Georgia feels like they have so many guys they're excited for, but this staff, from everything I heard and read, is really excited for. When you watched him play last year, it's easy to see why. Now, the production isn't going to be anything crazy, but 14 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. I think that we're just seeing the beginning of what's going to be a really exciting season for Gabe Harris Jr. I think he has all the talent in the world to be an electric player. I think he can be explosive, disruptive, and that's going to be really fun. The depth behind him is not as proven. You don't have a ton of production. You don't have a ton of guys that you know are proven commodities, but there's a reason why Georgia has done really well in the recruiting process, and you feel pretty good about just assuming that things are going to be okay as long as this process continues, and the coaching staff, who's done a really good job of developing guys, is able to continue doing that. Now, on the interior, you have two different guys that are going to start that have different levels of I think different ceilings. Christian Miller is someone who has a bright future. Not that Jordan Hall doesn't, but Christian Miller is someone who I think has a higher ceiling between the two of them. Jordan Hall still is going to be a really good player for Georgia. Didn't have a ton of production last year, but at 6'4, 320 pounds, that's a big body that you're going to see take a huge step in 2025. When you lose some of the talent that you have up front, you lose Nazir Stackhouse, you lose Warren Brinson, somebody has to step up. And Jordan Hall did see some time in important games. Now you get a chance to be the full-time starter. Christian Miller, 27 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. He definitely was ready to take that step last year. Now this team gets to unleash him in 2025. Xavier McLeod is going to be another part of that as well. That's a former South Carolina transfer who is a very exciting piece to this interior defensive line. Elijah Griffin's a true freshman that might play right off the bat. Another guy that they're really excited about, another guy that they're very high on going into the season. So you feel like you have plenty of talent on the defensive line in a year in which a lot of people were looking for interior defensive line. Georgia didn't really worry about it. They had plenty of talent to utilize. They have the right guys in place. They're excited about these pieces. And that means that they don't have to go out and find talent because they have the talent. It just comes down to roster retention. And I think they did a really good job of keeping the right guys in place. You did lose a couple of players, but you have the right guys. Christian Miller, Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod, keeping those 3 guys was a huge win for this team this offseason. The linebacker position should look familiar, though you do have a new face coming in. Elo Mendoza comes in from Army. And again, it's really weird to hear that Georgia recruited an Army player. Army does not recruit nearly on the same level as Georgia. Not saying they can't produce players that are really exciting, but when I heard that Elo Mendoza committed to Georgia, it was just funny. It was just really interesting that that's the dynamic that we have. And he was someone who was very disruptive for Army last year. 34 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. You hope that he can do that in the SEC, but if he can't, you have guys behind him that should be able to do that. But I think that he gives you the highest upside at that position. It'll be fun to see how he does against SEC offensive tackles because he was making life miserable in the AAC. And it's, again, still weird that going from Army to Georgia is a thing, but he is obviously talented enough to get on Georgia's radar and obviously talented enough to make big plays. Quintavious Johnson is behind him. Same with Chris Jones. Those are guys that could step up if Mendoza's not able to play at that level. So you feel like you're in a good position regardless of what happens there. CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson could be the best tandem in the SEC at the linebacker position. CJ Allen, 76 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. Raylan Wilson, 47 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. When you lose a player like Jalen Walker, you're looking for guys to potentially step up. Allen and Wilson are in great positions to just keep that tradition going of great linebacker play. Chris Cole is another guy that'll be part of that rotation, a young player that saw time early in his career as a Georgia Bulldog. He is someone that could get on the field quite a bit. I'm excited to see what he can do. Justin Williams saw some time last year. Terrell Foster, same thing. The talent is not lacking on Georgia. That's really not anything new. That's not surprising. Overall, you feel like you're in a great position regardless of the turnover that you have. Georgia did a good job of retaining its top talent. And honestly, there's a lot of players that you would question, why would you go anywhere else besides Georgia anyways, especially certain guys that played the way that they played last year. Allen and Wilson, again, are going to be really fun to watch. They get to take on bigger roles with Jalen Walker going to the NFL. And this is going to be really fun to watch this front six take on its new roles and to see what they can do to finally step in and insert themselves as the leaders of this defense. The secondary, I think, is absolutely stacked. You've been waiting for some of these guys to take steps, and now they get an opportunity to do that, or they did it last year. Dalen Everett is a guy that we've heard about from the minute he stepped on campus, and honestly, even before that. He finally saw it, we finally saw exactly what we were so excited about at Georgia. Dalen Everett, third-team All-SEC selection, and I think that there are better things to come for him in this upcoming year. 58 tackles, 3 interceptions last year. Opposite of him, Daniel Harris will get plenty of attention as well. 22 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 3 passes defended. Teams are probably going to test him a little bit more, knowing that Dalen Everett is more proven. But in the SEC, you're going to face plenty of top talent that will challenge both guys. The safety positions are pretty much set. KJ Bolden is a fun player to watch if you're a Georgia fan. If you're not familiar with Georgia's secondary, KJ Bolden is someone you definitely want to pay attention to this year. 59 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 interception. Opposite of him, Ja'Cory Thomas steps into a new role with Malachi Starks departing. So we'll see what happens with his play. We'll see what he can do. 7 tackles last year, 2 passes defended. And then you have Jonel Aguero at the nickel position, the star position, if you will. This is a guy who is very talented. I think the staff is excited about what he's capable of doing, and they know that they have a good guy set to take over that position and be really good for them. Jane Harris comes in from Miami. He'll be another guy that could potentially factor into that spot as well. Some younger guys that you're kind of waiting to take a step. DeMello Jones at corner. Same thing with Ellis Robinson. Both guys have the talent, and I think Robinson kind of has higher expectations coming into the year. We're waiting for one of them to, or both of them, to step up. If they are able to do that, Georgia's in a great position for depth, for talent, for starting positions, especially with these 2 starters that you have in Harris and Everett. You feel like you're in a good position. 1 or 2 of those guys stepping up and showing that they're ready just gives you good depth. So if they get hurt, they need a little bit of a break. You don't lose a ton of production, or you don't have a huge drop off with one of them coming in. You do bring in 2 transfers at the safety position. Adrian Maddox comes in from UAB. Zion Branch, Zachariah's brother, comes in from USC as well. Both have good experience, good production from last year. So you're feeling like you're in a good position, even with Thomas and Bolden. Now, Thomas probably will get challenged more than Bolden in terms of the starting spot, but they're really excited about what he can do for this team. Getting back to the college football playoff is the goal. Well, actually, winning a national championship is the goal, but they're definitely trying to get back to the playoff for sure. Can't win the title, obviously, if you don't get back there. And this is a team that wants to ensure that this year ends very differently than it did last year. You start the year with a 2-0 start, and honestly, the Tennessee game feels like it's going to be a blowout with how things are going. The Volunteers just are, I think, not in a great position quarterback-wise. I think that overall, Joey Aguilar is going to be a really interesting player in that offense. I think he fits well, but playing Georgia is just a much different beast, especially early in the season. Then you get a bye week to prepare for the Alabama game. We all know what happened last year. Georgia is ready to make sure that they start the year 4-0, and beating a team in Alabama that's going to be ranked, that's going to be one of the best teams in college football, is a great way to solidify your resume, to get back, to ensure that you can meet your goals this year. Kentucky is struggling a lot. Auburn is trying to get things back on track. That'll be an interesting road test. You host Ole Miss. We'll see what Ole Miss looks like at that point. We'll probably know pretty quickly if they're a legitimate contender or not. And at this point, we're definitely going to know. Then you get another bye week before you face Florida at a neutral site. That's going to be really fun. I think that is a big time game that if Florida is truly living up to expectations, this one could have massive implications in terms of seeding, in terms of the race to the SEC championship. That one will be really fun. Then you go to Mississippi State before you host Texas. The Texas games last year were super fun. I enjoyed every second of it, and I think that that's going to be a really fun game once again between those 2 teams. Then you face Charlotte, and then you have the Georgia Tech game at the end of the year. We know what happened in 2024. We obviously know how close that game was, and Georgia is obviously looking to make sure that that does not happen once again. 9.5 is the over-under right now. I think the ceiling for this team is 12-0. They can beat every team on their schedule. I don't have any concerns about their ability to potentially win those games. The concerns just come to, you're playing in the SEC. You're probably not going undefeated in the new era of the college football playoff, but you don't need to. I think 9-3 is the floor, especially when you have a new quarterback coming in. There are some concerns about Gunnar Stockton. I'm excited for him, but say he gets hurt, or we saw in the Texas game what happened. There's a chance that kid is going to get knocked out of a game. What happens if that's against Alabama? What happens if that's against Florida, Texas? Those are games that are not going to be easy. Just because Georgia is playing and recruiting at a certain level doesn't mean other teams are not. Those are games that are losable. Now, 9-3 would be a disaster. That means things are not going well. You lose key players. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see 10 or 11 wins, probably, is what it's going to look like. And most of you agree. 88% say first through fourth. That puts you in the 10, 11, 12 win range. 7% say fifth through eighth. And then apparently a bunch of trolls are just saying 5% of you say 9th through 16th. That is probably not going to happen. Things are desperately wrong if that were to happen. But this is a Georgia team that should get to where it wants to go. It should meet the goals that it wants to meet. And this is a team that is going to be motivated to make sure that last year doesn't happen again this year.